Game 13, very interesting game. A lot happened in this game. Very strong stuff. So we had Gukesh. He was losing the previous game. He won, then he lost, and it was really critical game for him to see how he deals with this, him losing and this like 2 games left. Um, what to do, psychologically, how he recover, from losing. So he had the white pieces. I felt like he had to push, and he did. He had to push to prove that he could, if he able to win this game, the last game he could draw, then he becomes a world champion. So it's very important game. So we had him with white pieces. He had e4, and then we had Dink with e6. As I predicted, maybe I predicted e5, Petrov. But if Ding played e6 in 2 games, chances are he's just gonna continue doing it. So we had the French defense, d4, d5, and now we have. I think in game was in one of the games, the exchange variation was kind of strange that happened. So we have knight c3 and then knight f6, e5, knight bd7, knight e2. We are back to like game one. And then we had c5, c3, and then we had knight c6. And then we have e3. I don't think this is a novelty or anything. It's an idea. You're looking at b4 at some point. He's maybe stopping e5 in some ideas, which happened in game one. We had a long sink by Ding and bishop e7. And then we had bishop e3. I actually like this move a lot, which actually goes to like his preparation in game one. Bishop e3 here, especially the next move, knight b6, which I actually don't like very much. Around here, knight b6. Let me explain the why I don't like this so much by black. I think the next idea would kind of like show it. Yeah, so knight f4 is really the idea behind bishop e3. You're keeping everything defended on the center, and then you play knight f4. There's more space this way. You potential knight h5. There's queen g4, and I felt like it's a good idea by Gukesh. Really nice try in the French, and we had takes, and then knight c4. And I actually don't like this move. The reason being is because of take, and then there's possible queen g4. And then queen g4 has to be really very good attacking here, and then knight h5. I don't think this is gonna be uncomfortable for black to defend. I actually predicted this is gonna happen, and this is the idea behind the preparation. To my surprise, actually, we didn't have this. I think I'm noticing this is happening with Ucash, that he has the right preparation, but he's mixing up the wrong move order. Meaning that knight here is playable, but after the queen is like after g4. This is a preparation where the knight goes into e2, but after possibly queen g4. Or if black plays perfectly, then maybe knight ge2. I mean, it depends on which line. But here, it looks like queen g4 was by far the best idea. b5, I mean, black does have the 2 bishops, but it feels like, again, not every time you have the 2 bishops, it's going to be, you have an easy time. Depending on the position, and I feel like after castles here, we had knight c3. Again, there are some concerns on the queen side, king side, like queen g4, knight h5, or knight h5, queen g4, the same plans. And after knight c3, obviously you're gaining a tempo. And I like this kind of moves, meaning knight here, getting out of the way from the queen, you're attacking on b5. So here, and then you have, you have to defend on rook b8 was being played, and then we had knight h5, f5. Speaking about f5, I actually felt like f5 was necessary, and instead of like castles, maybe f6 instead of f5. I mean, f5 is understandably makes sense why, But f6 here, this is very typical for the French players to play f6. I actually kind of felt like f6 maybe here was much better. Even the computer actually agree with this one. Maybe not yeah, maybe not here actually. F6, f6 around actually around here, f6. So f6 around here, yeah, it does change the position once you have the knight on c3. Yeah. But f6 here, it looks like black position is pretty solid. You would love to see this happening, bishop here, and then you have some ideas of attacking on d4, and then you could have the two bishops effectively open lines. So it's strange that he didn't play f6, but he had to play f5. So it kind of brings the question why he didn't play f6 early when he had to. So here it takes, and bishop takes, and then we had. I felt like it was a strange move by. Yeah, was a strange move. There's a reason why this is a strange move, and when I was looking live, I was like, this is like sack of a pawn, isn't it? I mean, can he just simply take here? And I think that with the time situation here, like is it move 17? It would be for Ding best tries to take on d4 because you could make multiple moves here, and this is actually queen f3. This doesn't feel like it makes sense. I think maybe better move is by far is something like here and queen takes d5, something like this here, queen e6. So this is probably a better way to play this position. I feel like this maybe draw, considering the bishops, opposite call bishops. White could still play on, but I think, maybe this is really heading toward a draw. And more moves are being exchanged, and this is maybe a more easier position to play for black, considering the time control. Usually, Gukesh is going this psychologically too, like he's trying to complicate the position as much as possible, so it makes Ding to sink for more time instead of giving him like easy moves to make. So this one, as much as maybe White has play, I feel like it's still heading toward a draw. But queen f3 is really strange looking, and it's very weird. There's a line here, for example, here, and let's say you take. You don't take with the queen, by the way, because you could take and this is hanging. You take with the rook, and then you go back. And then there is, let's say, e5. And then you simply play here. You sacking in exchange, bishop f5, and then queen takes f6. You sack in exchange, and you have a strong position here. Actually, if you look over the moves, it's like at least very strong couple moves that would make things a lot easier for Ding to make the time control more like to reach to move 40, and it probably easier to play this position. If this were to happen, this is complicated. Black has enough, I mean, here maybe the computer actually likes black. Enough compensation would have been interesting to see. I actually felt like this is what's going to happen during the game, considering the time control, how Ding likes to play this kind of positions, but it didn't happen. I don't know why he didn't take on d4, and why queen f3 is being played. It's just a little bit strange. But anyways, queen f3, and then we had queen e8. I feel like this is really passive. Again, we had knight takes d4, much stronger move. Takes, rook takes, then we had queen e2. Queen g6, which is fine. f3 is very strong move, positional strong move. Is looking at knight e4. The biggest concern I have if I'm black is this knight is going over here or even d6. So f3 is really good move, also stopping all the potential, bishop, coming into this diagonal. I think the biggest concern, and this is actually typical French, one of the problems with the French defense is the bishop on c8 could be sitting there for a long time, and it's been sitting there for a while. So rook f8, slightly passive, but we had rook over, and then we had this weird move. I think a6 is possibly the move here. I think it's important to make a6 so the rook of b8 is not really tied down to defend on b5 for a long time. A6 is by far better move. There's a reason why you need to keep the knight on c6. If we go over here and this feels like a mistake because next move is pretty good. bishop f4. And now the bishop gets really active. And it's the problem here, should you take, you're going to win one of those pieces, right? One of the drawback, the rook being on b8, right? So white is gonna take one of them. I mean, you could argue, say knight c6, you're defending one, but you cannot defend the other one. Nice move though, nice idea by Gukesh. But obviously, the knight was sitting on c6, so the bishop here cannot be played because of rook takes. Knight e7 is completely strange move. But here, this is really Gukesh's chances to try to win. Rook b6, and then we have bishop c7, bishop d6, and I feel like after rook here, that's a very weird decision by bishop takes knight is completely strange. I actually felt like this, and if here bishop c5, this has to be like really, white is heading toward the win. Knight e4, and the bishop is acting on c5. The bishop on c8 is like collecting dust at this point. It's being tied down to defend on e6. The knight is coming here. It's very hard black pieces are not really acting very well. Like maybe rook f7 is coming next, but it feels like white pieces are very strong. Even the Evel bar feels like this is really strong by white. To my surprise, though, he traded. You normally have to be cautious to trade. I mean, maybe this is like a concerning move, knight f5. But again, bishop c5 just simply deal with this move. Gukesh had a lot. I guess he had some time to think about this. This is his opportunity to really shine. It's just I don't have too much explanation. I felt like here, and he felt like the queen is going to e5, and then he has knight e4. He felt like this is much better version of the game. But black could still hang on a little bit. But obviously the problem I'm having here is obviously if your black side is, you have to watch out for knight e4. You would love to have a bishop on and b7, and somehow trade if you can on e4. Even there is not clear. So we have a6. When Knight was on knight c6, I suggested he could have a6. I was attacking the pawn, I believe, here in some lines. Attacking here because of the queen is sitting on the same areas that he could defend the knight. So obviously a6, d5, and this is getting really intense. Pawn takes. I mean, black has to defend like precisely, especially now Ding is like getting into trouble, and it's not easy to make a move. You would love to play like bishop here, but I think there's a concern about queen d8 ideas. There's a back rank issue here. Queen e6 is a move. Queen c5 is pretty nice try. Is rook d6, rook d8, rook e1 in some lines. We had rook here, and I think black had to take. So here's my take. Isn't queen? Is it two rooks better than a queen? Yes, but it depends on the position. This feels pretty. It feels like even here the queen looks like it's better because it's there's a back rank issue. The bishop's sitting on c and not doing much. I think Ding has to do this, something like this here, and then he has to precisely play here. And should he play knight e4? Look at this. Knight d6 is like really insane move. And then here, and let's say after here, you have to possibly play here. This is all forced. And then something like here, rook, I think you have to play this. Apparently here, this is the way black should play the position. Everything is being held by, by Ding, because, you cannot take here. The queen is under attack. And once you start moving the queen, then you could start moving as well. So here it feels like it's close to equal. And maybe Gukesh, should be concerned about any possible, like the two rooks maybe working together against the king on f2. But here, I mean, I felt like this is what Ding had to play. But he plays here, and I think here is the biggest issue. I think going to the computer here, and then knight e4 is much better. I think removing the defender on e8 was key. And then knight e4, knight d6 is kind of tough to deal with. The move order, do you play knight e4 now, or you played rook takes? Again, I think this is remind me by one of the games that Gukesh had, was it like the knight sitting on e6? Would he play knight e6 to c5 or the knight on d to play c5? It turns out to be that the knight on d has to go to c5 to win the game. When the bishop was on d4, it's the same thing. Rook takes c8 would probably give like a winning advantage for Gukesh. Knight e4 giving some possible draw chances for Ding. And again, we had knight e4, and then the only defense move I think is rook f8, which actually it's not easy to make this move. But you're looking at knight d6, but I think it makes sense to make the move here anyway because of to get out of the way. So rook f8. I mean, here's 4 minutes to defend this position with black is kind of rough. But we had knight d6, and the only move is here. This is forced move, and then we had queen here. I felt like this was a possibility, but there's like queen b6 ideas just on time to defend. You defend the queen, and it's check, and then you defend the rook. So you don't win in exchange here. So we had queen d5, and now this is a draw now. And after 4 minutes, this couple of moves, you have to make 6 moves. It's easy for Ding to actually save this position. Rook e5 is kind of strange. I feel like this is getting a little bit difficult. Maybe for white because you have to worry about b2 at some point. There's still pawn majority here, like 3 for 2. White has to be careful though. I feel like this is like okay, but here takes, and then h6, and then queen c5, bishop d7, and then we had knight e4 back, and then we have this strong move by Ding, which is queen f4. And now it looks like Ding has to do like one move to reach move 40. So we had this move we have here. This feels like it's a draw. I think white is still active because of the rook, but it's easy to draw this game. It's okay to put your rook to g8. I mean, there's not a big problem considering you're gonna exchange the bishop for knight pretty soon. So we had this move here, and then h3. It's funny that here it looks like there's a draw. Here you repeat queen f4. You cannot block with a knight because of if you play g3, queen takes f3. So let's say let's make the move here. Should he play here? g3, queen takes f3, and that's gonna be problematic. So you just have to go back, and then some kind of repetition. But to my surprise, actually, Gukesh was trying to play on. So he played on and king f2. It's just a try. I don't think it's I think a draw here is pretty fine for Gukesh. I don't think he's gonna win. He's trying. So after here, rook takes c3 is very good. The idea is pretty simple. Should you take, let's say, something like here, rook c8. By the way, should you reach this position, something like this here, this is actually a draw. Even though you might be up a pawn, but this is easy draw to make. You cannot make any kind of improvement. So we didn't have this. We had pawn takes, queen takes, and I feel like this is white has to be a little bit careful here, but there's plenty of time because you're looking at this past pawns, right? I mean this past pawn, excuse me, a6. But you could play a little bit for more time. This is still draw. King here, and we had queen b3, rook e7, a5, rook b7. You still have to watch out some ideas, queen c4, and then queen over, and then we have queen c6. This is pretty much easy to play. Simply, black is looking for some kind of an ending where, I mean, we're already an ending, but some kind of a trade with a queen, and then, just like here. So after take here, it's a draw. Should, Gukesh take on a5, this is easy. It's 3 for 2 here, it's a draw. Especially when the rook's on. Having the rooks on is pretty much an easy draw. So check here, queen here, he just takes, and then rook b7. They played on for a little bit. This is 100% draw. If you don't have the rooks on, maybe you may have a chance, but with the rooks on, are pretty much difficult. 100% should be draw for black. King h7. I was just a little bit surprised that this has been played on. I mean, this is like any grandmaster, any low rated player could actually draw that, but I don't blame Gukesh for playing this for a couple moves. this has been played a little bit faster. F4, king f6, king f3, and then g3, check, and then white is trying to the best he could, h4, but this usually just go back and forth. White cannot really make any kind of progress. Check here, even he plays f5, and then you could check. So should you take here, rook takes g3, and then there's no way you could do anything. You play here, and then you start checking again. And then we have a repetition. Very good game, though. Very good stuff. Well defended by Ding, to be honest. Even though he made some mistakes. And I think the reason it came down to, I think the mistake for 197, he could have played a6. The other mistake that he didn't take on d4 when queen f3 was being played. To be fair, this draw result makes a lot of sense. The position was really calling for it after maybe before queen f3. Even though Gukesh had his chances, queen g4 could have been played, could have complicated the game. But, I think it's fair result. Now we are up to the final game. And that's the reason why Gukesh was trying to play on, to find a way to try to win. Now, it's hard to say what's going to happen. So game 14 is in a couple of hours, a few hours from now. My prediction is we're going to see a London, unfortunately, and I think Ding might force a tiebreak. It wouldn't surprise me if we have a quick draw, and I'm preparing for the, rapid portion, which I'm not happy about, that we're going to settle this in in rapid portion. We have a rapid championship anyway. I'm more of I've said it more times over and over again. I'm like to see more games. 14 games is not enough. Players are not playing, they're trying to play cautious chess. They try to be careful with their moves. You don't want to go into preparation line because of the limit. There's only limited games. People doesn't know that 14 games in chess is pretty low. Even 20 games is pretty low. You need 50, 100 games to start saying, well, players could, you're going to walk into preparation to see what do you have. And then you don't have the concern that they may lose a couple games because there's always time to come back, right? But when you have 14 games, you only have small quotient of games where if you lose one game, it might be it. So my prediction is London because Ding would have white. If Ding plays the Catalan, that means it's a sign that he's trying to push for a win. Let's say d4, knight f6. And then c4 he's looking for, or maybe he could play another English. That would be basically saying he's trying to get some kind of advantage if he can. However, I don't think this is going to happen. My prediction 80% is going to be a London again, and tie breaks. He may not take any kind of risks. He may be happy to play rapid. But if I were him, I would try to play, especially he's white. Maybe he could try maybe some idea with the London. Just like we had an idea with him playing the London, and it was prepared line. He played two Londons. One of them is pretty much lame. It was a quick draw. The other one was kind of interesting. The one that he castled long in the London, right? So should he do something like this even with the London? It would be great. If Gukesh able to hold, then he may, it would be at least something that, it's a draw perhaps if you could draw, but, and also Gukesh could try to play for a win. Who knows? Maybe he could try to push just to avoid the tie break. So it's going to be fun. My prediction is going to be draw. If we have one player win, I'm not a fan of tie breaks. I would rather see one player win, whether it's Gukesh or Ding. If we have tie breaks, we have tie breaks. But my own opinion, tie breaks is this is a classical format. Why should we have a rapid or even blitz to break the tie? If that's the case, just create more games. It just doesn't make sense. We already have blitz championship. We have rapid championship. So why should we have tie breaks that settle the classical format in a rapid or blitz format? This doesn't make too much sense to me. But best of luck to both players in the next couple of hours. I expect quick draw or maybe a push by one player to try to make it at least challenging, and and we're looking forward for that. All right, folks. I will see you soon for game review of game 14. Take care.